Hello, everybody. This is Nick Palavita, and we're in the media show on the Pod TV network. And we're going to be discussing today the actors' strike. And with that, we're going to bring in first our journalistic major from Marquette University, who I will not forget, Mark Lee, who has 100 years experience in broadcasting.
Only 100.
We'll bring in Jim Eade from the Eade Foundation in San Francisco, who has 100 years experience in playing chess as opposed to broadcasting. Close enough. And then somebody who actually lives in California who knows a little bit about this stuff. We'll bring in Rick Rosner from the great state of California and Hollywood area. And Rick, I'll start with you. Can you tell us what's going on? We know the writers all struck, so they're not doing any work.
The contract,
now the actors. What's going on?
Contract between the producers and actors expired a couple days ago, but they agreed to extend it for another 10 days through July 12th to try to come to an agreement. But it doesn't look great. Nearly 98% of SAG members voted to authorize a strike. Some big shots like Meryl Streep and Bob Odenkirk and other names say that we should be hard line against the Producers Association. The issues are, I think, more serious this time around. Whether you can replace actors with AI-generated, computer-generated performers.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, like I follow.
That's a serious issue.
Yeah, I follow some influencers who are completely made up. They look great, and yeah, it's very ominous. There are 160,000 SAG-AFTRA members who could go out on strike.
It sounds very ominous.
Compared to only 11,000 or so writers who are currently out on strike and have been so for the past 2 months.
Okay, when they go out on strike, what are they looking for? What are they trying to accomplish besides?
Well, the current model, which is everybody watches streaming, everybody watches Amazon Prime, Netflix, Disney Plus. Those aren't set up to really deliver in terms of residuals. It used to be back in the days of the three big networks, you make 39 episodes of a sitcom a year. They rerun in the summer, and then they rerun forever, like I Love Lucy or Gilligan's Island, which we watched miserably in our childhoods because we'd already seen every episode 50 times. And under the old model, every time they reran, probably I Love Lucy was pre-residuals, but stuff like the Brady Bunch, the actors are probably still getting paid a little every time it runs, but not so for the stuff that runs on Netflix.
No, they're definitely getting paid because I've got a friend of mine that is still getting paid for his cult classic that he did, and he did the music for it. But Mr. Howie did the music for Jeepers Creepers 1 and 2, and I know that he still gets a check, not a big check, but he gets a big check, a little check for that cult classic that was out there in the horror space. But I did have a question for Rick and everything. I'm pretty sure because I saw him last week and everything, and I saw him in physical flesh, that Nick is real and all of that. But I have no proof that Jim is actually not an AI.
No, Jim is an artificial.
Jim is not an AI because I have no proof that Jim is not an AI.
Yeah. It's going to take a while to get around to making computer versions of us, because we're not as pretty as the people who don't exist that I follow on Twitter are very pretty models wearing not much in the way of clothes. So
they're all AI.
Demand to make duplicates to make fake pretty ladies than to make guys.
Well, the Resident Evil thing, I just saw it. This is why this is a very beautiful woman who's the star of that series of
Mila Jovovich.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. And I just saw an animated version of that. And so it looks like her artificially, created. And, like I'm of an age where I think, the animation isn't sexy to me, but maybe it is. I don't know. But the idea is taking someone that looks pretty and then making an image of them, and then does she get any residuals from that? I have no idea.
I assume since she's made like 7 Resident Evil movies, I assume her agents have gotten her some kind of deal.
Yes.
But if it's a one payment deal, that I mean, who knows what kind of bad deals? Because I've heard it argued by Justine Bateman, the actor, director, writer, and who, when she was done being a kid actor, went back to school, got a degree in computer science. So she knows the whole landscape better than anybody. She says the agents will just go ahead. They'll get paid, whether people are real or not, but they'll go ahead and make bad deals. Because, and
so basically the strike is about trying to make a fair deal for the actors, the writers, and so when these things go into,
I'm not sure. Fair deal might be, too high a bar. A living wage is what people are asking for in the writers' strike. I was lucky enough to have most of my years being paid to write TV in the era when that paid really well, was able to pay off our house, was able to send our kid to a fancy college. And now people have to work side gigs writers have to work, like Uber and junk, or work in a restaurant to afford an apartment.
But Rick, wasn't that always the case? I mean, how many of us remember the old meme or the old narrative that's been out there ever since the 70s, ever since I've been following entertainment, about the folks that had to go out to California, moving from Kansas or North Carolina or Nebraska, and would do one of two things. They would wind up working in a restaurant in order to pay their bills until they got their big break. And sometimes the blue industry of porn and other things would wind up recruiting them as well.
Well, yeah, the first movie I wrote was, I guess the only movie was a porno, but once you get your break, that's supposed to,
Exactly. I mean, everybody knows the old New York waiter who's an actor. You always get waited on at your table by someone who's in the acting industry in LA or New York. But, what we're talking about is someone who makes it. And then once they make it, go ahead, Rick. Sorry.
When I was working in TV, I got paid 50 because I worked on a late night show. I got paid 52 weeks a year, and the guild minimum was $3,500 a week. So, and I got a little more than that because I was an old hand, and that's a decent living. And the vast majority of guild writers are not getting anywhere close to that now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, definitely, Jim, you've got a new show that you are doing, and I know for a fact that you're trying to get Jatovia on it and all in that space. So we got Jatovia right here, so we'll talk to him about it. But you have this show called Change Your Mind, where folks are trying to have your mind changed about something that you don't necessarily agree with. And you've done about 3 of those. I think we're on number 4 this Friday, maybe number 5. But I know that you told me that you are not the biggest fan all the time of video games. So you want Jatovia to try to change your mind about video games. So Jatovia, are you ready to change his mind about video games? And are you available for a recording with him? Because he said he wants to have you change his mind. So Jatovia, are you game for trying to change his mind about the merits of video games? Because that's the name of the show, is Change Your Mind.
Yeah, I can definitely do that anytime. I mean, it depends on what the mindset is about video games that the issue is.
Well, that's actually, we're getting off the subject a little bit, but I just sent you my email in the chat. So let's take this up offline because I don't want to take time away from the Screen Actors Guild. But I'll talk about the whole conceit of the show, and we'll touch bases there. But I do want to say that this is such a near and dear thing to my heart, because we're talking about creativity and whether or not society values it. And these writers, these actors, they're entertainers and they help us get through the day. And we value that, but we, if it comes to us at at minimum wage. We don't care if it comes to us at when, you know, like a Bruce Willis, who I don't think it is as a great actor, is making mega millions every movie he produces. You know, there's always some sort of imbalance. But right now we're talking about a changing world with AI doing some of the writing, AI doing some of the we used to call it graphic imaging, you know, but now it's animated, I guess is the way that we talk about it. So the world is changing. And how do we do it in an equitable way where the creative producers, whether they're directors, writers, or actors, get a slice of the pie? It doesn't have to be the majority of the pie, but it has to be a slice of the pie, especially if profits continue down the road. How do they get factored in? What is a fair and practical way of proceeding so that everybody can make a living?
So
live a life of dignity.
The entertainment industry, what happens in the entertainment industry is the canary in the coal mine is going to happen to everybody else in every other industry. You know, and AI is coming for us now. It's going to come for everybody later. You know, when the studios were started 100 years ago by people running away from Thomas Edison, who owned the East Coast. If you wanted to shoot anything in New York, which the whole industry was there in like 1910, you had to use Edison cameras, and he was a prick. And so everybody, and charged people a ton. So everybody moved west to where the light was better. You could shoot every day, and you didn't have to deal with Thomas Edison. And it was a bunch of like super entrepreneurial, wild-assed Jews who ran the studios. And they were pricks, but they valued the product. They loved the movies. And like I said, the entertainment industry is a model for every other. What happens to us now happens to everybody later. And what's happened is the individual, you know, moguls, the Louis B. Mayers and everybody, the Goldwins, were replaced by, you know, corporate boards, you know, by you know, everything became for the shareholders, nothing for the love of movies. And those guys, the people running the streaming companies now, they may like TV a little bit, but mostly they like making a ton of money. The top 7 or 8 CEOs of these streaming companies total $773 million in compensation a year. They like making a ton themselves, and they like returning money to their shareholders. And if they have to replace writers and actors with AI, they will do that to the extent they can get away with it.
But speaking of AI, 2 legends of entertainment, no matter what you think of them, have come out and said what they think about this whole AI movement, and they've said it over the weekend. But Dolly Parton, a definitely country music legend, has said that she doesn't want AI technology to ground her here on Earth. And Arnold Schwarzenegger has said, hey, look, Terminator has become a reality. So they are definitely speaking out about this. As a matter of fact, Dolly said that a lot of what she has is fake in the first place. I saw that quote from her and all in that space. So I thought that was a hilarious
she is funny
and a thought from her. And she said that technology could, she was worried that technology could ground her soul on Earth, and she's left a great body of work behind. And I don't know how they'll keep me around. I'll have to decide how much of that high tech stuff I want to be involved with.
That goes into to change my mind, where life is going to be much more like a video game, where Schwarzenegger's already been turned into CG. Because he's been making Terminator movies for 30 years now, and he looks too old. And in one of the last ones, they needed an age reversed. Well, they did it to Indiana Jones.
I was just going to say, yeah, Harrison Ford's still making them.
they've been. So the interesting thing about AI, and this is where AI and video games come hand in hand. The canary in the coal mine wasn't in the writer's strike. The canary in the coal mine, we just never paid attention to because that happened a long time ago. Because coders and everything else that has been hitting the coding market for a while, because people have been looking for cheap ways to, program things and so on and so forth. But then on top of that, if you look at all the video games that are out there, Michael Jordan was never in a video game until this year. I mean, other than Jordan versus Bird, but in terms of an NBA game, Michael Jordan kept his likeness out of there. The whole likeness battle was what took down EA for a little while, because the O'Bannon brothers, when they were in college, they had a huge lawsuit, and that's where the name, image, likeness comes from now in college. The whole nil that everybody's now a little bit upset about, because they're understanding, one, yes, the kids in college should be paid, but two, nil is destroying the college athletics, because if the college can pay the most, yeah, they're going to get the best players regardless. But so that true. Name, image, likeness, that's been a part of the video game world for a while. I mean, the gaming world was the canary in the coal mine, but we enjoyed the video game world and never really paid attention to everything going on in the video game world. Because it foretold a lot. Like all the AI stuff that was the big battle. One of the big things in video games, one of the big knocks that everybody hates in video games is when the AI player or the NPC does something really bad or just dumb and nonsensical. Well, you know what these computer companies did? They made the AI smarter. They made the AI NPCs talk and sound more realistic. The voice acting, the characters themselves. You had an actor who just passed away. Well, his name, image, and likeness will live on in one of the video games. Horizon Zero Dawn. He will live on for infamy, looking the same because he was the actor who played a character in there. It looks just like him. NVIDIA has been pushing the CGI market in terms of gaming and computer-wise. I mean, there was a couple of years before, a year before COVID hit, NVIDIA, the CEO of NVIDIA did a full-blown conference. He did his whole conference in front of people, and people thought it was a real person, but no, it was all CGI done. So you can make people look, because I remember earlier you were talking about Resident Evil, The Village. The big lady is what they called her because she was very busty. She was very beautiful, but again, she wasn't realistic. They had some, that was all CGI. That was all made up character. They didn't really have a model.
Yeah,
they just
to tell you along those same lines, is it possible? Because I've been doing this for years and I love doing it. Did it yesterday. Actually 2 days ago, and we'll maybe go out there tomorrow, not as an MC, but just to enjoy myself. But I know when I was talking to John Shane, I made the joke that he would still be playing, because he's been playing for a number of years at the as well in 2050, and he made the joke back to me, then maybe his AI will be performing. And when I mentioned that to a mutual friend of ours, they were like, if you're not careful, the entire environment will be AI. So is there going to be a point where there is nobody at this historical state park and everybody is just kind of enjoying the festivities while they are
right on,
in their
Mark.
house or whatever?
Yeah.
We're just going to put on their headsets.
Yeah, I mean, there's you got tons of stuff. There's actually a K-pop group that has actually gotten some attention named KDA or KD-A. They were a group made out of a video game company called Riot. They did their music. They've created the character. So when you go to a KDA, or if you watch a KDA video or a KDA concert, which they tried to perform, quote unquote, live at a League of Legends tournament, you're watching 4 digitized women performing in front of you doing a full-blown concert. The Titanic does hologram stuff. Where they're trying to, make sure that you have this realistic view of what's going on and you can talk to a real person there. All that stuff is coming. I mean, it really is.
And more than that, AI will eventually save the world in a really creepy way, because we will, within the next 20, 30 years, we'll figure out how to download consciousness, and people are going to get more and more matrixized. People will live in crappy apartments and live, 100 square foot like pod where you're just lying down and being virtual 15 hours a day. And 100 years from now, people may, if you get to be in your 90s, 100, you may get your whole brain downloaded into something else, and you continue to live on in the metaverse.
But
So there was
hold a second, Rick. Isn't a part of the problem with that? Because I know that this is separate, but Fauci has talked about our obesity levels and everything. So if we're laying down in a pod, isn't the body going to?
Yeah, no, it'll be bad. It'll be bad. It'll be super
Rick,
bad.
You are spot on, because there's a movie. Remember WALL-E? Disney made WALL-E. That's what that was about. Everybody was functioning, watching videos and laying down and getting fat. And then when the guy,
It's another
that'll be
alternative.
part of the service when you live in a crap apartment, because the pod, because you're virtual, you're going to have to pay people to come in and hose you down, walk you around, make sure that you get fed and have some reasonable
Yeah, there's
amount
another
of hygiene.
alternative to this. We're Homo sapiens now, and I think we're going to adapt and become Homo robotics, or something else. I don't know what the Latin word for that is. But
so we're going to become the Borg.
What we'll have is the bodies of robots, cyborgs.
So
we won't have all of this.
what's funny,
problem with obesity.
Millions of people already have chips in them. Anybody with a pacemaker, anybody with a cochlear implant,
Right.
with an insulin pump, we're already, we've got machinery in us already. I would argue that Trump was the first AI president. The job loss
so interestingly enough,
not that he's computer generated, but that the people like to say that the people who voted for him because of economic anger and insecurity, and maybe so. And it's job loss. Like, nobody talked about it in 2016. We're barely talking about it now. But a lot of the job losses and economic insecurity are due to early AI and just encroaching technology. And each party blames the other party, but it's technology that caused the job losses that helped get him elected.
No.
So interestingly enough, oh, I was just going to say real quick. Interestingly enough, if you look at, when we're talking about the Cybertronics and the humanoids and everything else, there are tons of video games, again, that lead down this path, with Deus Ex, which actually has a phenomenal story talking about everything that you're talking about. There's also Cyberpunk 2077, which just came out. As I'm having a kid yelling in the background, but 2077 yelling in the back. That's another one. Then you also have your movies, where there was a movie that there's Upload, which is just recent. That one's on Amazon. There was another one that was on Netflix, where you downloaded your whole brain and everything else on a disc, and the body itself was no more than a cybertronic body that you could flip in and out and be different people.
That
just for sliding that disc.
That was so.
Yeah.
That was a
It was a
lazy
horrible
show.
movie.
I thought it's 300 years in the future.
We could go on
Everybody
forever
can-
like this, but getting back to the subject of the writer's strike, and how do we tie in the money that people are making down the road to the people that helped make it in the first place? And I think that what you were talking about earlier, Rick, is that it's a contract that the agents have to negotiate, or maybe SAG as the entity that negotiates with the studios and gets an agreement that is everyone has to have a little piece of the pie.
But I mean, part of it is also going to be, to your
built
point,
into the
Jim,
contract.
but part of it is going to be how they're going to tie in the new elements, including the AI, into the contract. Because one of the things that I saw recently, and Jacoby maybe can speak to this, is that a major award actually decided that they were not going to do AI nominations, but that's in the year 2023. That means maybe in 2030 we'll actually see movies that are an entire separate category of AI and all of that, because the Grammys this year said that they were ruling out AI nominations. That doesn't mean that they're going to rule it out in 2028 or 2029 or 2030 or maybe even next year.
I mean, it's going to be a problem because every performance is going to have AI. It's like, I look at sports. What's going to happen to sports? Like, are you going to let people play pro sports when they have a chip in their head that gives them faster reflexes, that they've downloaded like 300 years of other quarterbacks' experience?
But in that same space, Rick, you are a screenwriter, and that is part of your background, including to be in the Mensa qualifications and all of that space. But there are folks, including, and I hope that Nick will jump back on, because I think both him and Kim have talked to this gentleman, but the Netflix co-founder, Mark Randolph, I think it is, said he was excited about AI and automated screenwriting. So that worry you and everything? Because it could be that you're not even going to write
the deal, like, all right, so Liam Neeson has a new movie out where it's him and his family in a car, and if he doesn't keep driving, there are bombs on his kids, and somebody's going to blow up his kids. It's like Speed, but with Liam Neeson. How good does the writing have to be?
Hey, listen, when I was in high school, I could.
All he has to say is, "I have a special set of skills."
Right. And like at some point, like one of the kids is going to turn around, look out the back, see a car, turn back to Liam Neeson and say, "Dad, we've got company."
Yeah,
AI can write that.
Yes, and there's a lot of stuff that's that's being written now by human beings that is of that quality. So what we want is the high quality of people and allow them to make a living. And how do we do that? So I think that we're in a time where we're trying to figure out how to be fair contractually, so that you don't tag a studio with supporting mediocrity forever,
right?
But you reward creativity forever.
No, that makes a lot of sense. We definitely got.
But then you also got to take into account that, well, the tough part, I think, the other canary in the coal mine in this whole situation, streaming took off.
Yeah.
So then again, with gamers and other people getting on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, all the other avenues that, Amazon is making a killing. Well, actually, Google's making a killing off of YouTube streaming. Amazon is making a killing off of Twitch streaming. Facebook and all of these other companies have that other.
Chess players aren't having to play chess tournaments now. They just Twitch. They just stream. And they make more money.
And also with streaming comes not reporting viewership. When shows were on networks, everybody knew the ratings. And
that's a great point.
You could say, look, we're getting, this rating, I deserve this. But Netflix keeps viewers, all the streamers, they keep it close to their chest.
And they, when you do hear about it, you always wonder, is it exaggerated? Because everybody says, "Oh, I've got 3 million viewers," and you don't have any way of verifying it.
I can help you out with that, James. Okay, you're right to a certain extent. Okay, because the thing is, see, we got our analytics now through Vimeo, and we try to push all of our content through Vimeo, then push it out. If we do that, then they'll give us analytics coming back. Oh. Last year we had 2.2 million views or 2.3 million views. Does that mean we have 2.3 million viewers? Maybe not. Okay, because you don't know, views don't turn into viewers. Here's the other problem. Okay, how many were robots that watched us?
Yeah, are you counting
that?
clicks?
I don't know. So the thing is, whenever you get, but streaming actually has the ability to get you a more accurate viewership than the Nielsen ratings. Nielsen was based on estimates, based on their service. And I think Nielsen's dead as a company. It's just, the only question is, when do you want to bury it? And frankly, listening to this conversation, I think SAG is dead. I mean, you can do what you like. They can say what they like. They can draft all the contracts they want. Doesn't matter. AI will take over and the actors are dead. You
Yeah,
know,
but AI takes over in every industry eventually.
eventually, yeah,
So
right.
what that
But-
does is it screws up capitalism and
Yeah.
it screws up communism. How do you think like when certain things become virtually free because machines can make them for almost nothing, then why not in like an idiocracy type situation where everybody gets basic necessities for virtually free because it doesn't cost anything because machines just pump them out. It's going to change economics because everybody's going to have job displacement to some extent, but you still need to pay people to exist, otherwise the economy comes apart.
Well, right now we just need to pay people to work the AI machines to replace the actors.
Hey, Nick, I got a question
You
for you.
know,
And it's actually a
it'll
question
be,
for
There's a
it'll be
serious
over
question
time. The whole
behind that.
question is,
Nick. I
which
got a serious question for
industries
you,
go
and it's a serious
first?
question for
This becomes the
everybody. But
question.
you mentioned
Hey,
the
one at a
Nielsen
time.
and the
Hold
Nielsen being dead and everything. So my question is, because I've oftentimes wondered this, because I know that they used to give money for folks to have the Nielsen equipment, but I have yet to meet anybody that actually had one of those Nielsen devices. So have any one of you had a friend or acquaintance that actually had a Nielsen device that was doing this gathering of data? Because I've asked this on other shows and nobody has revealed to me that they were a Nielsen participant. So maybe
I've
you tell
known
me.
people who've had family members who had a box, but in addition to the box, they would send a couple times when I was growing up, they would send surveys where you just write down what you watched, which was kind of pre-box.
And I would never ever reply.
Well, I think there's some industries that are transparent, some are opaque. The whole rating is opaque. They don't want to be transparent. Most of the media is opaque. They do not want to be transparent because they want to bring the advertising revenue in based on fluffy stuff that's happening that may not be happening. So,
and
you know,
Google and stuff,
that's what it is.
they play game. All the big companies like Google play games with their advertising metrics.
Right. There you go. Yeah, and that's what they're doing. They're playing games. But as you're looking at the actors strike, and I just heard it was actually mentioned on the news just a little while ago. They're going till July 12th, and they're supposed to make some decision. It doesn't matter because the trends are what matters. It's like if somebody's going to make a decision, hey, we're going to stay or leave, New Jersey, and I like what Rick said. They all moved because of Edison, which is the main reason. He was a jerk. So they moved out west. It doesn't matter. It's the trend that matters. And the trend is your friend. And the trend here is they're going to move to AI, whether they like it or not. We can sign all the contracts we want. It doesn't matter. Somebody's going to interject AI and they're going to replace the actors over a period of time. The actors will never go on strike because they're artificial. People will still watch them. Look, they want more people. And Jacoby knows this. More money is spent on video games than the entire movie industry, right?
More money is definitely spent on the video game industry compared to the music and the movie industry combined.
Yeah. So the trend, that's the trend. That's just going to continue happening.
And video games and movies and TV will continue to merge. Where if you like a movie, if you like Star Wars, well, why not live in the Star Wars universe 15 hours a day?
So it was Bandersnatch, which really was the one that was, in terms of what you're talking about, Rick, that's Bandersnatch. That was Black Mirror, where they tried to make it more optional to where you can have multiple endings, just like a choose your own adventure book. That's even happening now with the Spider-Man across the multiverse, where there are multiple versions of Spider-Man in the actual theaters. So gamification is hitting everything because everybody plays a video game now. I mean, games are everywhere, and that truthfully, again, was the canary in the coal mine.
Okay.
And there's so many aspects of it you just forgot about.
Sorry, Jacoby. Even if we postulate the end game where AI is everything, until we get there, there has to be a transition phase Where I don't have any problem with, someone's image living on, Dolly Parton's image living on. I do think that there should be some trail of income back to Dolly Parton or her beneficiaries. The idea behind this is pretty simple. It doesn't have to be anything that gets in the way of the people that are still producing these things making tons of money, but just a little bit of it gets funneled back to them. And that is contractually obligated. You do negotiate that up front. And then, the people that fall in love with Dolly Parton then can participate in her image forever. But the people have to fall in love with someone first.
But Jim,
So
along those same lines,
I think what you were alluding to is correct, where there has to be a transition phase. And I think right now we are in that transition phase.
Right. Yep.
And I think dealing with the whole contract situation, I mean, I completely agree. The writers need to be paid. The actors need to be paid. There's Ice Cube has already come out saying that he's against anyone using his voice to create a song. He will never have that happen, because I think there were two rappers that just did a song together, but that was all AI generated. I think it was Drake and somebody else.
Yeah.
And so all that's happening now, and I think we are in what you're talking about, that transition phase. We have everything has to be figured out.
I watch any sports show, and they always have a disclaimer: no part of this can be broadcast. Any portion of this can't, it's not. You cannot
be allowed to be
in any other form. So why not just do that with your image? Make that contractually. Just that kind of like, you cannot use it without my express written consent.
But they can. Steroids are illegal. But if you look in the back of a bodybuilding magazine, you can find things that are steroid molecules, but they added an extra hydrogen that doesn't change how it works in you, but it makes it legal. So you can buy legal steroids. So you're going to see knockoff actors. So it's not Meryl Streep, but it's 10% away from Meryl Streep. And
I think what you're saying is it. That's what's going to happen, because then we're going to get into that. Well, there was always a debate in the video game world about around the video game world. Can they be seen as artwork, or are they just computer programming, and so on and so forth? So when you look at that whole debate around, okay, well, if I sample this piece, am I actually? It's basically the whole litigation, which I think Nick may still be in the background, but the whole litigation around, art itself. So if you take a look at Meryl Streep, as you're talking about, if you put Meryl Streep instead of in the hair color that she's in now, but change it to a bright red, is it still Meryl Streep, even though it looks just like her? Can I say that it's somebody different and have a similar voice, but maybe a pitch a little bit higher? So that's dealing with that
why
whole
we have courts of laws, Nick.
Time for litigation, then,
Yes.
because that's a good question.
I knew Nick
I'm trying to give you some more work.
Work to do, Jacoby.
More work for you to do.
It's litigated, man.
But along those same lines, really quickly, there is a very seriously superstar that is sick and everything, and some people are saying that she pushed herself too hard and that maybe she needs to consider scaling back her tour, but also maybe using AI in her tour. So that is Madonna, who has been definitely facing a bacterial infection and all in that space. And a lot of folks have been saying that she was pushing herself because she wanted to be as much energy as folks that are in some cases half her age, and maybe in some
Madonna's
a third of her
Madonna
age.
is 64 years old.
Yeah, Joe DiMaggio said that he didn't know when somebody was seeing him for the first time, so he wanted to have his best performance every game. And so Madonna's wired that same way.
But when you're talking about this transition phase and NIL, it looks like the existing actors, I'm going to pick on Dolly Parton for one right now, will use her NIL contract until somebody creates a new, better, not looking like Dolly Parton. In other words, then they won't require NIL contracts because somebody just created them from anew. So all the actors are going to be replaced with new, better AI actors that you've never even heard of.
But Nick, along those hold on a second. Nick, along those same lines, we may see some very interesting stories, and I'm gonna break down two that are Durham based and everything. But with what's going on with the AI, what's going on with the technology, what's happening in the world, and with what we're talking about, a lot of folks are not going to be able to do the work that they used to do. So, example, there is a gentleman that is part of a rap group called the Jungle Brothers. He actually lives here in Durham, North Carolina, but he is a plumber. So that's part of what he does, is he has to make a living doing something else. And actually, Terminator X lives here now. And if anybody follows Public Enemy, he actually came down to North Carolina because he wanted to raise, are you ready for this, Nick? He wanted to raise ostriches. So he actually was running an ostrich farm and all in that space. So he, some engagements around.
There's actually an interesting Black Mirror episode that just came out in this season, which has Miley Cyrus in it. And what you're talking about kind of similarly happens in that film, where Miley Cyrus actually gets sick. She's actually unable to perform. Her agent, who turns out to be her aunt, is trying to get her to stay in the same space that's making her a ton of money. But Miley Cyrus wants to be a different form. She wants to go down a different genre of music. But to do that, her aunt tries to put her, basically kill her, and then created an AI version, a 3D generated version of her, having an actor do the whole dancing in the background. And she could do a concert anywhere, just because, they have this 3D rendition or 3D image of her, and it looks realistic, so on and so forth. And so, that's
that Black Mirror again, Jatovi. You told me about it, and it freaked me out.
Oh, Black Mirror is
it's a great show.
I watched a couple of those episodes. It is definitely will have you scared in some ways and definitely alarmed in others. I got to
it definitely was hard for me to handle.
Just taped it's an episode of his show that is all the time at nighttime, so it'll be running for about 2 weeks straight, the new episodes that we have recorded, until we do some more recording in about a week and a half, because Rick's got some stuff going on. But Rick, you oftentimes talk about stuff that is in that sexual lane, and I've got a story that I wanted to share with you that folks might enjoy. But apparently Lil Nas X, a rapper and everything, was doing a tour, and he avoided industry. He's the industry baby artist, and he was at the European Lollapalooza in his doing his midway through his performance of Down South. And it's a word that is not a good word for ladies of the night and everything. And I'll just leave it at that. Y'all can figure out the word and all of that space. But he was surprised when an object was thrown at him, and he had to do some fast footwork and all in that space, because apparently a sex toy was thrown at him and all in that space. So I was just wondering, when you were performing, did you ever have any of these things thrown at you? Because he actually at one point even asked who threw their name for a cat stage.
On stage at the Comedy Store, I was almost completely naked and I was bitten. There's a guy who is kind of the victim of the longest running practical joke in the history of the world. There's a whole cast of people who mess with this guy. And he's homophobic in addition to being a lot of other unpleasant things. And so people will hire male strippers to go interact with him because it makes him super angry. And so at one point I've danced for him several times to drive him insane. And the last time I did this, I got too close to him and he bit me on the arm.
Hey, Jacoby, apparently it's a new trend, because I'm seeing several incidences in the same article. Apparently Kelsey Ballerino had a bracelet thrown at her, and last month Bebe was struck in the face by a cell phone, where somebody throwing a cell phone at him. And then Ava Max was slapped by an unnamed man who just rushed on the stage there in LA and just slapped him for no apparent reason. And Pink was apparently had somebody throw a bag of her late mother's ashes onto the stage as well. So definitely there's been all kinds of crazy things going on. So are fans just going mad and all in that space?
I had chess pieces thrown at me. Does chess pieces count?
Yeah.
Okay,
Had
as a matter of fact,
board
the
tipped over on me.
person who threw all the chess pieces at me was the founder.
But hologram Tupac never, he doesn't have to worry about getting
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah.
Nick,
Well, this is the question,
Nick,
Mark.
my question is, when they threw the chess pieces, did the rook go diagonal or did it go straight at you?
Right.
It's actually on recording on one of our shows. It was John Fanning, the founder of Napster. Okay, so the thing is, he wanted to play me chess, and I said, "No, you don't want to play me chess, John." But he kept insisting, "Oh, I got to play you chess. I'm a good chess player." He founded some chess website or something like that. I founded Napster, which is big fine. Original investor of Uber is where he made all his money. And okay, so I sat down and played him, and I crushed him like a bug. And at the end of the game, it just goes like this, vroom, throws all the chess pieces off.
Well, the question that you're saying is very relevant because people are disassociated now from reality.
Right.
They're assuming these people on stage, they don't really think of them as a person like themselves.
Right.
They think of them as an object. And this is true. Like when I was thinking about, would you really fall in love with a Dolly Parton simulation? And like you would with the real thing.
You would.
And the answer is, just a minute, I want to finish this.
Sorry.
And Dolly Parton, the image of her, and the answer is yes. People fall in love with the actors now, like as if they knew them. They walk up to them in the aisles in a grocery store and start talking to them because they feel like they have a relationship with them now. And it's probably true of the animated objects, the AI produced objects in the future.
People will fall in love with them more. These pretty women who don't exist, they've got porn star bodies with kind faces. If you're in the porn industry, you get a hard face after a while because
of course.
But resting bitch face, they call it.
Yes.
But these ladies who don't exist have maintained their kindness, even though they've got they're wearing a string bikini spilling out of it.
Yeah. Well,
and like her is, there's already been one good movie and probably a bunch of crappy movies about people falling in love with virtual people.
There was a whole case. It was a legal case, wasn't there, Nick, of somebody that was actually suing somebody because they were told to divorce the person and all in that space. So it was a AI individual that was encouraging the person to divorce their wife and all along those lines. So that
it's one reason we got to get a liberal Supreme Court. So we need a court that is conceptually able to rule. When the first person wants to marry an AI individual in 15 years.
Yeah, but my point is, I'm sorry, Toby, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just, I think I'm on the same wavelength as what you're talking about. But yeah, yes, people are going to fall in love with whatever they see on that screen.
Yeah, but isn't that, I'm going to make a stretch here, but I think this disassociation is a form of mental illness. This is a problem in society.
Well, yeah, people can't are disassociated. People driving are disassociated from driving. We've all had the experience increasingly recently where half of the time, if you're behind somebody is at a stoplight, the light changes and you have to honk at them because they're just not there. They're in digital realm.
Here's a different question though, because this happens all the time. It's happened in gaming. It's happened, everybody falls in love. People fall in love with Fabio, and all they see on Fabio is the back of a book cover or the front of a book cover. So, is it disassociated, or is it that they're falling in love with a fantasy and having that fantasy there? Because that happens to all of us in pretty much everything. When we're staring at there are in gaming, when you're in the meta space or in virtual reality, you can fall in love with somebody in that virtual reality realm. And people have done that. In the movie Sleepless in Seattle, basically a dude fell in love with a girl's voice on a phone and drove all the way to Seattle to see her. And that happens all the time. So is is it a mental thing, or is it just something where you're falling in love with a fantasy and building that fantasy in your mind? Is it a? I don't. I mean, it's.
Well,
I don't know.
having a spank bank is a recent thing. In the 70s, when I was trying desperately to lose my virginity, people kind of were present with the people they were having sex with. Now, I wasn't having, nobody wanted to have sex with me. But now people of all shapes and sizes can have sex with each other because everybody has a library of all the porn they've seen, and they use that to let them have sex with people with regular appearances.
But
The spank bank is otherwise known as a sock.
yeah, it's a sock work. Rick, along those same lines, though, there was a Saturday Night Live star that apparently is taking a break from his podcast to prioritize his mental health, and he actually came up with a term that I had not heard of in all of that space, but I'm sure y'all have heard of it. He is taking a break due to a bad bout of depersonalization. So the gentleman's name is Bowen Yang, and he apparently he's saying that it's really messing up bad. He's doing his best to get better, and he's going to take a break, and he wrote that on his Instagram. But according to the Mayo Clinic, depersonalization is a psychological condition in which a person regularly feels that they are having an out-of-body experiences and that their surroundings are not real. So they are like,
we're talking about something kind of in a jocular way, but it's very serious in my mind, is because, there's nothing wrong with fantasy. Fantasy is wonderful, and I think that's different from the disassociation that I'm concerned about being built into our society now as a product of our society, which is not healthy. And
no, I think that's when I wasn't joking about that particular case and everything, because I think that's why Mr. Yang is taking this break, because he is feeling disconnected.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, Mark, because I think there's two types of different things. Like everybody fantasized throughout history. And Cleopatra probably was not thinking of Julius Caesar or Mark Antony, but it doesn't matter. That's healthy, I think. And I think most people would say that that's healthy. But when you don't think that the person you're with is human, that's not so healthy. And you think you can still fall in love with something that is not human. That's the disassociation part of it that I think is taking it to a different level. And I think we're heading straight down that road.
Yeah, but I don't think it's. I think it's inevitable. I don't think it's a process that can be
reversed or stopped.
Yeah.
But speaking of things that can't be reversed, and I got to tease it because he brought it up as we ended the news program, but we're talking about AI. We're talking about things that are going on in the world. And sometimes things that are going on aren't necessarily the robots that we need to be worried about, because sometimes, and as y'all know, I'm a fan of Mother Nature. Sometimes Mother Nature is like, wait a minute, I'm sick and tired of y'all. Y'all are crazy, and all in that space. And apparently that's what's going on with the orca whales. And I know that they can live to be 200 and all along those lines. But what are our thoughts when the whales are apparently like looking at the yachts and going like, hey, we want to take you out because y'all are kind of interrupting our space and everything? And Jacoby brought this to my attention, but I was just wondering our thoughts about this, because we're thinking about AI and what it can do, and maybe the whales and the giraffes and other things are going like, hey, y'all are forgetting us, and we're not exactly like what y'all are doing either.
Well, people have different opinions as to what they're up to. I've heard that they don't go in to sink a ship. They've learned to hit the rudder and knock it out, which disables the ship. So, I mean, they're smart. Are they doing it for fun? Are they doing it because they're pissed? No, nobody knows at this point. But at some point we will, because we will be able to chip orcas and communicate with them.
Well, the funny thing, if I remember, the orcas actually have the largest brain on the or the biggest brain on the planet.
Yeah.
But imagine how pissed you would be in general to be an orca, to have the biggest brain, but no hand. You can't build anything.
You can't build anything, but as I've mentioned on your show, that'll air later on in the week and everything, one of them other whales, I forget which one it is, actually is the longest living human. It actually doubles our lifespan. I think its average lifespan is 200 years. So it was probably around when my great-great-grandfather was around and all in that space, but it is definitely around that 200 years that this particular breed of whale lives. It's not the orca, it's another one of them. But, they're probably sitting there going like, y'all think y'all are all that and a bag of chips?
Yeah.
We can live to be 200.
Take a perspective, right? Yeah, there's a lot of truth in what you're saying, Mark, in that we used to think that the rivers were inexhaustible, and we found out that they weren't. Now we thought that the oceans and the air that we breathe are inexhaustible, but of course they're not. And so the more we intrude on these spheres and influence them by our man-made discharges, they will not take lightly to being poisoned. Now, I don't think they have any collective bargaining power, though. So one orca is only going to have so much of a voice in this argument. And
well, they do. They work in pods.
That's true. I stand corrected.
And then on top of that, they did say that the attack on the boat, the most recent one, might have been a part of a pattern because the orcas are starting to remember.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but Jacoby, wasn't that one of the, speaking of things that can be popular? I know that Jaws was popular and all of that. There were a number of Jaws movies, coming back to our original topic. But wasn't there a movie about the orca whales that was way back in like the 80s or the 90s or something like that was a success?
It was in the 80s. It was actually, I think it was called Orca. There was also the cool thing about Jaws, though, Jaws being a great white shark, it was not about a great white shark when it was written. It was about a bull shark, because a bull shark is the one that was a bull shark can go in both salt water and in fresh water. A great white cannot. Right. A bull shark also has the most testosterone and would attack anything on the planet. It is just a mean shark. A great white does not hunt that way. Even the great white sharks that hunt off the side, I think it's of Africa, where they breach the water when they jump out, attacking the seals. That isn't what it was all written about. It was actually written about a bull shark, but they changed it to a great white, and that created all the fear. But yeah, the movie you're talking about is Orca, and I think it was done in the 80s. It came out, I think, after the second Jaws.
Right.
Whatever.
But yeah, one part of that movie, you could see the orca jump on an iceberg to try and make the man slide into his mouth. That was pretty funny.
Jaws was based on, I can remember wading out into the ocean after it came out and stopping it at knee length and just not being able to go another step.
You were scared, like I'm not going there at all. Hey, Nick, I know we're winding down. I got a minute or two, but I was wondering, as all these negotiations are taking place and everything, will you be getting some work from the writers, some work from the actors? And I'm thinking you might also be getting some work. I don't know how you negotiate with them, but we've established that they may be able to negotiate as well. So I think you may be able to get some legal work from the orcas as well. But you got to figure out how you're gonna get the orcas to pay you, because I don't know that you want to get paid in fish. But you got
I don't want to get paid in fish. No, that ain't happening. But we may be able to get a lot more interviews from the unemployed actors that'll be unemployed after July 12th.
I want to mention a model where artists don't get compensated at all. When a Van Gogh painting sells for $80 million, the Van Gogh family, his descendants, they get zero.
Yeah.
And there's actually, my artist buddy says there's a law that says that you have to pay for subsequent sales of art, but it's unenforceable. So what you're saying about getting, screwed, even if there's, it could
be.
He
get paid for his Pink Panther family? Because I thought that was part of the notion, was he did not get enough money, even though his dad wrote the Pink Panther.
My buddy's dad created the Pink Panther, and every time they make a new Pink Panther movie, it grosses, 100, 200 million. The family gets $9,200.
Whoa.
And they took it to court because there's a law that says, but they got a judge who wasn't familiar with the law, and they lost. They went up against MGM, and of course, MGM has better, pricier lawyers.
Oops. That's too bad. So
Yeah,
we'd say,
you look at him smile. That's too bad.
listen, I don't care who wins as long as we get paid. That's kind of like it, you know.
And as long as you get paid in something other than fish.
And yeah,
That's
Orca's going to have to pay more than fish, but maybe in the next couple of weeks we'll be able to get some unemployed actors on, you know, because they have nothing better to do.
We're gonna
as
have
they go on
500
strike.
channels to watch and nothing worth watching.
And nothing worth watching, yeah, which is typical on television today.
Well, that's what's
Meantime,
going to end the strike.
There's always anime. Anime has some good stories.
we'll all be replaced with AI. But in the meantime, have a good day. We will see you all next week on the media show. Bye bye.